Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the why and how of cryptocurrency. So I have Alexis Miller here with us. She's going to be presenting the why and how of cryptocurrency. And Alexis is from Endaoment. So really quickly, what can you expect from today's session? So this session will debunk the crypto myths about risk and environmental impact, exploring the nonprofit use cases. You'll see how accepting cryptocurrency can boost your fundraising capacity. And a little bit about Endaoment. So Endaoment is the first community foundation or the first kind of platform built for community foundation use within the crypto community. They allow nonprofits to receive cryptocurrency originated gifts delivered as US dollars. Endaoment was created in 2020. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis Miller.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet you all. As Stephanie said, I'm Alexis Miller, and I oversee donor engagement and strategic partnerships at Endaoment. And I have been with the organization for a little over 6 months now. And just as a little background about me, I come from the traditional development and fundraising world. So I worked in the Jewish community for a number of years doing fundraising, and then most recently worked at the Baltimore Community Foundation overseeing our donor advised fund program, which is what led me to Endaoment, since we offer donor advised funds, but using crypto. So happy to be here with you all today. And as Stephanie mentioned, we'll do questions at the end, but please feel free to jot anything down as I am presenting. So here's a little bit of our agenda for today. I'm going to go over what is cryptocurrency and talk about some of the terms associated with it. You may have heard some of the terms, but may not be familiar with them. That was me 6 months ago, so totally identify with all of you. And we'll also go through some of the myths, as Stephanie mentioned, environmental impacts and kind of some of the maybe questions or ideas that you've heard about crypto in kind of the negative sense, and kind of flipping that to the positive and showing the benefits of crypto. We'll also cover why it's important for your nonprofit, and we'll end with some kind of case studies and highlights of endowment use cases, and then obviously Q&A at the end. So what is cryptocurrency? So the actual definition is a digital currency where transactions are verified and recorded and are maintained by a decentralized system rather than a central authority. So really what that means is a traditional currency like a dollar is controlled by a national government or a bank, but with crypto, it is circulated without any sort of monetary authority like a bank. So that's what the decentralization part kind of means. And two examples that you're probably familiar with or have at least heard of are Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are the two largest cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency, and it was created back in 2009. So many, many years ago, this kind of came to fruition, and not a lot of people heard about it back in 2009. But Bitcoin uses what I'll explain later, but it's called blockchain technology to facilitate the payments and the digital transactions. And it really was created as that government alternative issued traditional currency. And then Ethereum, which is what Endaoment is built on, the token name is Ether, and that launched in 2015. And it uses blockchain technology, which is, I'll give the definition on the next slide, but it's kind of the technology underpinning all of this to create what we call a smart contract. And really there's thousands and thousands, probably, I don't even know how many thousands of different types of cryptocurrencies. And each one kind of has its own unique identification, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then there's other coins and tokens that are kind of built in as well. A coin, I'll go through some terms on the next slide, but just wanted to give you context here. A coin, you may have heard of a cryptocurrency coin or a token, and a coin is the native asset of a blockchain. So Bitcoin as an example, and a token is something that's created on top of an existing blockchain. So there are other tokens that are built on the Ethereum blockchain, but Ethereum is the coin. And then there's other tokens that you may have heard of that are kind of like subsidiaries of that. So here are some Crypto 101 terms. I use some of them just now, and some you may have heard of, but blockchain is the digital form of record keeping and really the underlying technology behind cryptocurrency. So it creates a permanent ledger of transactions and data. So think of this as essentially the paper trail of where all of the transactions take place. And this paper trail is obviously, it's a technology, it lives online, but it's really the tech that underpins everything that's happening in the crypto space. Decentralized finance is financial activities conducted without the involvement of a centralized intermediary, such as a bank, financial institution, or government. So again, you may have heard DeFi before, and that's really the decentralization of finance and talking about how this is not something that is regulated by a bank. It's not something that's issued by a bank, but was created really by individual people. A non-fungible token, or an NFT, is a unit of value used to represent the ownership of unique digital items like art or collectibles that can't be copied or replaced. And you may have heard of NFTs before. People call them like digital JPEGs. And I'll give some examples in the case studies of how we worked with NFT artists to actually fundraise using their NFTs that they're selling. So it's a really cool fundraising strategy because there are these artists that exist who are charitably inclined and can actually code into their NFT that they want 20% of proceeds to support Planned Parenthood, as an example. So proof of stake, there's two kinds of proof mechanisms. One is called proof of stake, one is called proof of work. So proof of stake is the consensus mechanism using stake tokens to validate and add transactions to the blockchain. So proof of stake is what Ethereum is based on now. So it's reduced energy consumption by 99.95%, which I'll get into in a little bit. But the actual technology is being validated versus mined, which is in proof of work. So you may have heard of kind of Bitcoin mining as an example. That is something that is proof of work, where it's using computational power, so the energy of the computer essentially, to solve cryptographic puzzles to validate and add transactions to the blockchain. So proof of work is something that is using a lot of electricity, and that is what Bitcoin is based on. And Ethereum, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but in September, Ethereum switched from proof of work to proof of stake. And as I mentioned, lowering the energy consumption by 99.95%, which is just crazy to me that something happened like in a day, and now we have so much less environmental risks with the Ethereum blockchain. A smart contract is the agreement established and executed as code, enabling transactions without a trusted centralized authority. So an example of this is each organization and fund that is created on Endaoment. So every donor advised fund or every organization that's onboarded with us, we execute a smart contract that's deployed on the blockchain. So essentially it's just like a piece of code that says, when this happens, do this. It's basically like a programmatic element that's saying, when X happens, you do Y. And again, happy in the Q&A to like answer any of these in more depth. So definitely write down your questions. So a little bit of myth busting here. So the first is that cryptocurrencies aren't secure. So this is something, I mean, to be honest, all 5 of these are things that I kind of thought before I entered the space, and just wanted to kind of take some of the top 5. But again, if there are certain myths or questions that you have, I definitely want to make sure that I answer those at the end. So the first is that cryptocurrencies aren't secure. And really, blockchain technology is encrypted and very hard to break. So as transactions are entered into the blockchain or into blocks, previous transaction information is recorded and then encrypted. So I mentioned earlier kind of proof of stake. And there's really a community of people who are called like validators or verifiers. And they're actually, I mean, it's like a computer, but they're verifying and encrypting all of the transactions that are happening. Between the encryption and then that consensus mechanism of the verification, it's very hard to actually steal information. The only part that is a little bit risky is actually people's individual wallets. So it's much more likely that somebody's individual crypto wallet is going to be like hacked, if you will, versus the actual technology that's underpinning the blockchain technology. It's very, very hard to actually break that or get into that. The second myth is that digital currencies don't have any value. And my kind of response to this is that value is subjective, right? Like we can place value on whatever we want in society and in life. So, there's a lot of utility that's associated with Ethereum, both the technology as well as the token. You could look at a stock in a similar way, right? Like what holds value in a stock? Well, if people are buying into the stock, right? And what makes a stock go down? People are selling the stock. It's the same thing with cryptocurrencies. So there are some tokens that are worth like a cent, right, in US dollars. But Ethereum right now is at about $1,300, give or take. It's fluctuating all the time. And Bitcoin is right at about $19,000. So you can think of that as like an individual stock, right? Apple or Amazon, and the price is fluctuating, but people are buying into it and people are also selling it at the same time. So I just try to think of this about the value aspect of it as kind of twofold. One is the actual technology that I personally don't think is going away. And you see these large companies like Google or Amazon or Fidelity, I just saw, is now offering a crypto ETF, like a new one. And you see all of these kind of traditional finance institutions or traditional companies who are actually using some of the technology and infrastructure in their own kind of jobs and day to day. So I don't think the technology is going anywhere. And then think of the kind of coin or token as that stock, if you will, like the fluctuation that's happening with the stock where people are buying and selling. The third myth is that crypto is bad for the environment. And I mentioned earlier proof of stake and proof of work. So I guess you could say at large, crypto is using a lot of energy, but so does daily activities, and so do many other companies and organizations out there. But now that Ethereum, which is what Endaoment is built on, now that we move to proof of stake, I mentioned earlier, it reduced the energy consumption by 99.95%. So you could say that it was using up a lot of electricity and a lot of energy, and now not so much. So it's really been reduced based on the way that we are validating transactions. And, as I said, I've been in the space for 6 months. I can't really speculate, but the fact that Ethereum moved to this, I could potentially see other blockchains moving to this as well. And there are some cryptocurrencies out there that are extremely environmentally friendly. So Bitcoin is on proof of work, so they're still using a lot of energy, but there are other kind of groups out there that are not using as much energy. And it's something that, at least with Ethereum users, was something that's really top of mind. Like when they built Ethereum, they always had this idea that they were going to move to proof of stake. They just couldn't at the time, given, I guess, some tech reason that I don't know. But it's something that people are definitely thinking about. And as an example, like at Endaoment, we have been really conscious of the environmental impacts, and we started a carbon offset fund that we were raising funds for, where people can donate into it. And then we're dividing the grants out to support environmental organizations. And we also work with environmental nonprofits. Like we've heard from a few, we don't want to take cryptocurrency, or we don't want to even engage in cryptocurrency, and that's fine. But we do have a lot of nonprofits that we work with that are in the environmental space. And it's been really exciting to be able to explain some of these new kind of narratives around proof of stake and energy consumption and what Endaoment is doing to kind of debunk some of those myths. The fourth myth, crypto transactions are anonymous. So my answer is yes and no. It's not entirely. So I mentioned the blockchain, and I keep using that word a lot, but it's really important because it's really what's underpinning all of this. So there's an audit trail on the blockchain. So it's not going to show Alexis Miller, right? It's not going to show any personal information, but it shows people's wallet addresses. So once somebody opens up a cryptocurrency wallet, that's what they hold their crypto in. And it gives you a string of letters and numbers, essentially. So it's your identifier. And some people choose to have like a screen name associated with it, right? So instead of having their long slew of numbers and letters, I might set up a wallet address that's amiller.eth, right? Because I'm an Ethereum user. So there are ways to kind of track people. And a lot of times people will have their screen name connect with their Twitter, right? So like some people choose to kind of reveal their identity, but they might not share their specific name. So it's really interesting. Sometimes when grants come through, it'll come through as like amiller.eth, right? Like they're putting their screen name, and then I'm getting a call from a nonprofit, like, who's amiller.eth? And it's like, that's what they go by in the crypto world, but they're not entirely anonymous. Another thing about the anonymity and endowment is there's a list of kind of bad actors in the crypto space, like bad wallet addresses. So for us as an organization, we are cross-checking every donation that comes in with this kind of bad actor list that is put out through the government. So it is really important to us to make sure that we're validating as much as we can the donors who are coming to our platform. And since 2020, we've never had a problem with someone coming to our platform who's on that list. And people are really trying to do good in this space. And I'll talk a little bit more about like the donor demographic that we've been seeing, but people really, really are generous and want to do good. And there's bad actors in any space, whether that's crypto, whether that's the stock market, whether that's just, people like buying and selling businesses and doing shady stuff. My fifth and last myth is that crypto is a bubble that will burst. And it is very volatile, but so is the stock market, and so is the world right now. We see so many fluctuations, and honestly, I believe that this is causing a transformation in finance and in money. I mentioned earlier that some of these large institutions and companies are adopting crypto, whether that's coming up with an NFT, right? Like the NBA recently, they have this whole NFT project, right? We're seeing more and more of these kind of traditional type of companies and institutions adopt some sort of crypto strategy or Web3 strategy. So I do think that this whole democratizing finance model is here to stay. And honestly, it's been really nice for people who are underrepresented and who can't have access to bank accounts for a variety of reasons, right? You don't have to go to a banking institution in order to open a crypto wallet. You just open a crypto wallet, right? There's no verification. You don't have to give proof of your income or anything like that. So we have seen use cases just of crypto in general as a payments method to be really successful for people who, for one reason or another, don't have access to the traditional finance and the traditional banking world. You don't need a bank account, and it's really a great opportunity to expand access to savings and investment products. And you can do pretty much everything you can in the traditional finance world. So you can buy and sell. You can do something called staking, where you're earning like a few percent yields, right? You're kind of like locking up your crypto and earning yield on it. And there's other types of investment products out there. And that was something that I was kind of blown away with. I'm like, oh, you could lock up your crypto or trade your crypto, right? Like you can trade from Bitcoin to Ethereum, or you can trade from Ethereum to US dollar coin, which I'll talk about later, which is what Endaoment does. So we'll talk more about use cases, but I don't think that it's a bubble that will burst. I think we've seen companies open and close. We've seen certain types of coins and tokens that have been dissolved or that have done bad things. But I don't think as a whole that this is going away. So why is crypto important for my nonprofit? So first and foremost, we're seeing a new subset of donors with this new asset class. So Fidelity put out a study, and happy to share the link after once I close out of the screen sharing. But according to Fidelity in 2021, over 1 in 3 millennial investors say they owned some type of cryptocurrency, which That's a lot, in my opinion. 1 in 3 millennials has some sort of cryptocurrency that they own. Nearly 9 out of 10 millennials say that charitable giving is an important part of their lives, compared to just 74% of the total population. And, I'd be curious your own experiences in your nonprofits, if you're seeing this, right? I know from my own personal experience, when I was working in the Jewish community, we had a really hard time engaging the next generation. And even when I was at the Community Foundation, we kept talking about engaging the next generation and getting them to open up donor advised funds. And they weren't really doing it. And this is kind of debunking my own myth, because they are doing it. They are engaging in philanthropy, just in a different way, right? They don't want to engage with nonprofits and with giving in the same way that their parents or their grandparents' generation did. And that's one of the reasons, not saying every millennial owns crypto, as we see 1 in 3 do, but it is really important to them. And it's important for nonprofits to be able to engage with them and kind of meet them where they are. And 45% of crypto investors donated $1,000 or more to charity in 2020, compared to just 33% of the total investor population. So really, and I'll share some stats from our 2021 impact report that we put out, but we're seeing that mainly under the age of 45, people are incredibly charitable. And you have to remember that these crypto donors have made a lot of money in a really short amount of time. And a lot of them don't look at themselves as philanthropists. And this might be their first time that they're making a large donation to a nonprofit. And we've seen this. Like, I've had donors say to me, I've never been able to give more than $100 or $500 to a nonprofit. And now I'm giving them $50,000 or $100,000. So for them, it's really important that the nonprofits are kind of stewarding them and educating them. And for us, it's also important that we're educating them as well on how to be effective grant makers and philanthropists, because this is really new to a lot of people. So talking about the kind of taxability of crypto per the IRS, and I always preface this with, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a financial professional, I don't give any sort of tax advice, but through the IRS right now, crypto is taxed the same way as stock is. So somebody who has appreciated crypto assets for more than a year can actually mitigate their capital gains taxes if they're donating that crypto to a nonprofit, as well as getting the traditional tax deduction. And through Endaoment, we do all of that. Since we're a 501c3 nonprofit, we're the one, and a donor advised fund provider, we're the ones who are actually issuing that tax receipt for the donor. So the benefiting nonprofit, so you all as an example, wouldn't have to deal with any of the donor receiving. But some crypto donors or some cryptocurrency holders don't realize the taxability of crypto. And I think that there's a big education gap, both from the nonprofit side, right, of like, what is crypto? And I'll talk a little bit more about our product. And like, you don't have to actually hold crypto, as Stephanie mentioned in the beginning. We deliver our grants as US dollars. So there's a big education gap on the nonprofit side, but I would say there's just as big of an education gap on the donor side, because donors don't always think about donating crypto as an asset, right? They might just think of it as like, some people don't know that you can donate stock. And that's been kind of a newer phenomenon in the past 10 years where donors are giving stock. So I look at it as the same. And we try to make sure that we're educating the broader crypto space on the actual tax benefits of being able to donate crypto, working with CPAs and financial advisors to help their clients as well. And then lastly, it's really an effective and efficient, quick way to send money. So when we talk about stock donations, right, I know for me personally, like, it would take a few days to liquidate a stock donation, or like if someone sent a mutual fund, we wouldn't get the money for like 2 weeks sometimes. And for crypto, these transactions take place immediately. So someone through Endaoment connects their wallet to our application, they make their donation immediately, and then we liquidate and send nonprofits the grants in 24 to 36 hours. So everything is a really, really quick turnaround. I know that, at my previous employer at the Community Foundation, we were sending grants from donor advised funds as checks, right? And during COVID, that was incredibly difficult for nonprofits because they were waiting, the mail was incredibly slow. And some nonprofits were waiting 2, 3, 4 weeks to get their check from someone's donor advised fund. And, the fact that this is immediate, you don't have to wait. And we've seen fundraising initiatives like with Ukraine and reproductive rights. We've been able to get nonprofits money in 24 hours. And that is amazing for nonprofits when there's a crisis or when they need money in their bank accounts now, not in 4 weeks from now. So really, it's a really effective way to kind of send and receive money. And specifically for the nonprofit space, I would say it's incredibly important that you all are getting money in your hands when you need it, not in a few weeks from when you need it. Okay, so what is Endaoment? So Endaoment, we're the first 501c3 nonprofit that's built on the Ethereum blockchain. So as I mentioned, everything we do, we're not just a nonprofit that facilitates crypto donations. We do that, but in addition, we're actually set up on the Ethereum blockchain. So I mentioned smart contracts earlier, like anytime anything happens essentially on our platform, a smart contract is deployed. So everything we're doing is very, what the crypto space calls crypto native. So everything we're doing is very in a kind of crypto forward way. And we offer donor advised funds, direct donations, and community funds. So a donor advised fund is like a charitable checking account. Many of you might be familiar with that concept, and that's kind of our bread and butter. Most of our donors are opening up crypto donor advised funds with us. And oftentimes they're using them as a pass-through to other donor advised fund providers, or they can use them as a pass-through. So we work with community foundations for people to open up a donor advised fund with crypto with us. And sometimes they're making grants to their community foundation donor advised fund elsewhere, or Fidelity or Schwab. We also offer direct donations where someone can kind of skip the fund process and just donate directly as a one-off to any nonprofit. And then we also have community funds, which we think of as area of interest funds or field of interest funds. So we have a reproductive rights fund that people can donate into with specifically vetted nonprofits by our team. So for people who don't want to decide where to give to, they can give into one of our community funds and know that their money is supporting a specific cause without having to actually do the research on where to give. We accept 1,000 tokens and we deliver them as dollars. So as I mentioned, we're built on the Ethereum blockchain, but we take really any token that there's a liquid market for. So our model is we kind of ingest the cryptocurrency, we convert it into what's called a stable coin, which is pegged, it's called US dollar coin, USDC, and it's pegged to the dollar. So we're not holding the cryptocurrency as Ethereum or as Bitcoin or whatever someone gives us. We're transferring it to something that is pegged to the dollar. So it's not dealing with the market fluctuations of Bitcoin or Ethereum. And then when a grant, that's kind of what it stays in the donor advised fund. And then when it's sent to the benefiting nonprofit, it's delivered as US dollars. So we have a financial institution that converts it for us from crypto into dollars, and then we're sending it directly to your bank account. Professional responsible team, that's us. And my favorite point that I like to share is that we're free for nonprofits. So, you know, there are nonprofits that I've talked to and they say like, oh, we're thinking of accepting cryptocurrency. Like, okay, right? Like they want to hold on to the token themselves. And we have that option, but 99% of the organizations that sign up with us choose to receive the grant as US dollars, because as you can tell, like there's a lot of security and complexity with actually holding on to crypto, right? You need a staff person to manage the wallet and you have to know what you're doing to a certain extent. So we like to deliver as dollars for nonprofits, so they don't have to deal with any of that. And we're completely free. So donors pay our fees and the fees taken out of the grant right now, but donors also have an option to round up like on PayPal, right? So if someone's giving $1,000, we take a 1.5% fee, but that donor is able to actually tack that fee onto their donation. So it's not actually, it's coming out of the grant, but they're giving more so that they're not taking away money from the benefiting nonprofit. We recently launched this feature and we're seeing 90% of our donors take advantage of the rounding up, which has been huge, right? Because then nonprofits are getting that full $1,000. We take a $15 bank wire out. So the only thing that the nonprofit isn't kind of getting in their bank account is that $15, since a lot of donors are deciding to round up the fees. And as I mentioned earlier, we do all of the donor receipting like any other donor advised fund provider, where we're giving the donor the tax receipt, and there's two forms, an 8282 and an 8283 based on the amount that they're donating, and we take care of all of that. So when a nonprofit gets signed up with us, we send them a little donate button to donate crypto via Endaoment. We send our brand kit, and we also send tweets and like newsletter language to spread the word. And one thing that we love to do is to work with nonprofits kind of on a one-on-one basis. If there's a specific, audience, or if you don't have a newsletter and you're only posting on social media, like we're happy to work with you to figure out how to spread the word to your community that you're signed up to receive crypto originated donations. And we recently launched a new feature called Sponsored Projects, which has been really exciting. So on an organization's page, they can actually fundraise for specific campaigns or initiatives. So people can give in a little bit more of a targeted way. And we've been seeing nonprofits take advantage of this as a way to kind of spread the word about what they're doing and share more information, as well as get some of those restricted targeted gifts. So just a few kind of charts and stats on Endaoment is this is our 2021 donor activity. And you can see here that, not surprisingly, but most of our activity happens October to December time, giving season, which I'm sure is probably the same for many of you. And you can see that our donor age distribution in 2021 definitely skews younger, under the age of 45 primarily. And we talked about anonymity earlier. We found that in 2021, only about 5% of our donors remained anonymous. That might mean they just shared their name with the benefiting nonprofit. That could mean they shared a name and an email address, but they weren't completely anonymous. There was some way to kind of recognize who this donor was. And one thing that we do is if a donor just passes along their name and they're not a donor in your community already, we're happy to pass along a thank you letter or any sort of kind of stewardship that we can to the actual donor. And for someone to get a tax receipt through Endaoment, and it would be the same with any nonprofit, like we need their contact information. So if someone has a donor advised fund with us, we need their contact info in order for them to get that tax receipt. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so some year-over-year statistics for us. So last year in 2021, we did $28 million in donations, and our average donation size, so average amount of money coming into Endaoment, was $85,000. And we granted out $12.5 million last year, with the average being $36,000. Much higher than the average donation and grant size for regular donor advised fund providers, which kind of speaks to my point about these donors are incredibly philanthropic and generous, and they made a lot of money in a short amount of time and really do want to give back. And so far, we've done $21 million in donations in 2022, our average being $54,000, and we've seen 16 million being distributed, with the average grant size being 40,000. And a lot of people ask us, right, like we're in a bear market right now with crypto and with the stock market and just in general, and we're still seeing activity, right? Like we're only $7 million short of where we were in terms of donations last year. And actually more people are granting out. And our fee structure, I didn't mention this earlier, but I mentioned it's the 1.5%. And the way that we structure it is it's 0.5% when it's coming into Endaoment. So when someone's opening up that donor advised fund or making that direct donation, it's 0.5%. And then it's 1% when it's being distributed out to the benefiting nonprofit to encourage throughput. So we're financially incentivizing ourselves to make sure that our donors are being effective and strategic and are getting money out the door to benefiting nonprofits, and that the money isn't sitting idly in their donor advised fund with us. So that's why we see these high grant numbers is we're really active with our donor base and we're asking them how we can be helpful and can we recommend nonprofits to you. But we also are seeing that we're financially kind of incentivizing ourselves to make sure that money is getting out the door as well. And here's kind of our lifetime impact since we started. We've done, at this point, these numbers need to be a little bit updated, but we've done $49 million in donations since we started. And we have over 800 organizations who are deployed or signed up on our site. And if you look at the bottom, the ecosystem breakdown, 58% of the donations into Endaoment have been distributed, right? And that is a large number. I think it's 22% is the national average for donor advised funds in terms of money actually going out the door. We have 231 donor advised funds, and we've had about 75-ish funds that have been created just in 2022. And we're seeing kind of a variety of grant making. Our top causes, a lot of people are supporting educational nonprofits or their alma mater. We also see a lot of human services grants being made, as well as kind of social action in the environment as well. Now for some case study. So I mentioned NFT artists, and we do a lot of work with NFT artists who are actually coding into their smart contract. We want 20% of our sales to support Amazon Watch. And it's really cool to be able to see this because they are reaching out to us, and they might have a nonprofit in mind, they might not. And the fact that they're able to give to charity through their project and be able to share with their community that 20% of the proceeds are going to support this cause has been really exciting. So there's an NFT project called Turf NFT that we worked with, and they wanted to support various environmental organizations. As you can see, they raised $529,000, which they distributed to these 3 nonprofits. These nonprofits, I know specifically like Amazon Watch never had a relationship with this donor before, not entirely sure how they heard about Amazon Watch, but they made this really large donation. And we actually hosted like a little, it's called a Twitter space, but like a webinar essentially. We hosted a webinar with Turf NFT and Amazon Watch, and it was really cool because now they're connected because these donors made a donation. So it was really interesting to be able to see how Amazon Watch used the money and to just see this relationship that's developing nicely. You know, a lot of the NFT projects will tweet about the fact that they're using Endaoment or who they're supporting. And it's been really, really great to see like these use cases. Another one it's called Unicorn DAO, which is a kind of group of people that decided to support reproductive rights. And Endaoment opened a community fund to support reproductive rights when the draft opinion was leaked back in May. So we opened up a fund. We had some donations that came in May, but we saw the majority of donations come in June when Roe v. Wade unfortunately was overturned. So we had our own fund existing, and we had some groups coming to us saying like, we want to support this fund and let's brainstorm how. So this group came to us and they wanted to set up, it's called a multi-sig wallet, but basically multiple people had to sign off on all of the donations coming in. And we gave a really like one-stop shop, easy way for anyone with crypto to be able to donate. We gave them, it was called legalabortion.eth. I mentioned those screen names earlier. I gave the example of like amil.eth. So they set up legalabortion.eth where anyone could donate their crypto to this address. Just send your crypto to this address. And they knew that it was being evenly distributed by those 7 nonprofits that are listed at the top that our team vetted. So it really was a cool way for the crypto community to come together. We worked with Unicorn DAO as well as other groups to spread the word. And their messaging was like, want to support reproductive rights, donate your Ethereum to legalabortion.eth, and it's being distributed to these 7 nonprofits. So like super easy, no minimum, like donate whatever you can, and you know that your money's going to a good cause. So this was really like, we have seen more and more of these come up where we have different groups of people in the crypto space who are coming together who want to do good. And whether they're using one of our existing community funds or they're setting up one of their own funds, it doesn't really matter. Money's going out to charity, and we're able to kind of mobilize resources in a quick way. I am going to stop there for Q&A time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone or those on video. And yeah, happy to answer any questions. I don't know if you all want to come off mute or post in the chat. It looks like there's one question in the chat that was sent to me. It says, are you seeing that the EA community is leaning more into crypto? Are there trends that you are seeing in their more academic decision-making as donor motivation, or are the motivations paralleling the traditional motivators? So I assume that the EA is in environmental action or environmental activism. I don't know if you want to clarify.
It's effective altruism.
Effective altruism, thank you.
Yeah.
So do I see that they're leaning more into crypto? Are there trends that you are seeing? You know, I think that a lot of people are leaning into crypto, like even just the nonprofit or traditional nonprofit groups that I've talked to, not just nonprofits, but like using like Candid as an example, right? Like GuideStar Candid. I'm working with them right now on a blog post for their donors and like their nonprofits. And we're seeing more and more that traditional like nonprofits, as well as like groups of nonprofits, are kind of leaning into it, or are at least what we call like crypto curious, right? Like they're asking us questions, they want to get engaged, they want to get educated, they might not know how. There's actually a group called, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's like crypto altruism. And there are a lot of groups out there that are kind of at the intersection of crypto and social good. And that's been really exciting, whether we're partnering with them or whether we're just like lifting up what they're doing. Like there's a lot of impact, like social impact groups in the crypto space as well, in addition to nonprofits being curious of what's going on. And we definitely see that like the motivations of these donors are paralleling motivations of traditional donors, in that they want to do good, they want to give back. And sometimes they don't know how to, right? Like I'll see on Twitter as an example, like, you know, I'm constantly trying to like post our name out there or like spread the word about crypto donations. And like, you see people post all the time about like, we want to have a charitable component to our NFT project or to what we're building. And it's not that easy, right? Like a lot of times we're coming up against roadblocks because they might have a nonprofit they want to support, but that nonprofit isn't signed up to receive crypto. So then they're like, what do I do? Right? Like they want to do good and they want to give back, but they don't always know what to do or where to turn. And it's really important that we spread the word, again, like not just to like tap Endaoment on the shoulder, but like it's important to talk about like there are multiple ways that you can do this, right? And like a nonprofit shouldn't turn them away. And also like, let's brainstorm. Like there's so many groups out there where we can kind of figure out how to best meet their needs. And like we've seen groups come to us before and we're like, okay, we might not be a fit, but like, let me recommend you to this organization who can help you, right? Like there's a lot of information sharing in the space in general. And like we've worked with people who might be kind of noted as our competition before, right? Like we're partnering with people in the space and it's intentional. Like we want to just do good and give back to nonprofits. So like, we're not looking at it as competition. We're looking at it as like growing the pie of crypto donors and people who are in the space.
Yeah, collaborative advantage is the way of the future.
There you go.
Sorry. Are you you spoke a little bit and touched on it, those who may not have access to traditional bank accounts. I'm making some assumptions. I haven't done the research yet, but I'm wondering the impact on informal economy participants. You know, the artists of the world, a lot of homemakers are participating in informal economy. And while here in the US, we look at that as criminal, in the rest of the world, that's part of their GDP. And I'm wondering how that's going to, if you're seeing trends already, if you're gathering data at the impacts on informal economy participants and what that might mean moving forward.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Like Endaoment specifically isn't collecting any data on it. I will say like as much as we want to be data informed and data driven, like these donors aren't going to fill out like a massive form, right? Or like we're just engaging with them in a very different way. Like we sent out our first donors survey last month and we got a lot of really great responses, but it was like, we were hesitant to even send that out because surveys more like traditional. And our folks are much more like, they want to click a button and make their donation. They don't want to fill out like a 5-page donor advised fund agreement, right? But there are groups out there who are doing research on that. And, like it has been a really great resource for people in other countries specifically. Like I can't speak to the US specifically, but people in other countries are using crypto and are able to get the access that they wouldn't otherwise have. And we are seeing people who, the crypto space is like very male dominant for the most part. And it's a lot of engineers and people who are builders in the space, but we're seeing more and more people who are, part of minority communities or are women or are not in the space. Like there was someone I was looking at on Twitter who like in her bio, she was like saying she's a stay-at-home mom and just got into the space and like has no tech background whatsoever. So like there are people who are coming out of like the traditional crypto narrative. And I think it's really important. Like there's a lot of female-led NFT projects and kind of women in crypto groups. And like, I personally have been trying to take advantage of that because I come from the nonprofit world. Like I am still learning in the space, and it's important that we have representation of not just who we think is the traditional crypto investor or the crypto builder, but really open up and kind of change the narrative that like there are people in the space who may not look like what you think they look like, if that makes sense. Any other questions?
Please, if you have questions, feel free to send them into the chat. You could also unmute yourself and share any thoughts, comments, questions.
How fast are you seeing your white space filled? I mean, I'm already seeing other there are what, 3 other now, not 501c3s in the crypto domain. So how are you seeing, as you're collaborating and are you looking at your country, you're basically a contributor analysis, who else is jumping into the space with you to sort of facilitate our foundations coming on board and learning to adopt programs themselves? Or are you finding more collaboration? What's the space look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, there are a variety of different kind of like crypto donation processors, if you will, right? And everyone kind of has their unique advantage, if you want to say it like that, right? Like, as I mentioned before, like we don't really look at ourselves as competition, and everyone kind of has their unique aspect. Like we are very crypto native. So someone who is very deeply in the crypto space is going to likely come to Endaoment because everything we're doing is crypto first, right? Like we are actually today, right now, currently, we are launching our version 2 of our platform. Like our website is down right now. So if anyone tries to go to our website, like you will not be able to get in, but we're launching our version 2. And some of the features that we're launching are specifically for crypto donors, like things that they've been asking for. So an example of that is like investable portfolio allocations, right, for their donor advised funds. So instead of having the money sit idly, being able to actually like invest a portion of it to yield a return. And some other really cool features that we're launching, some for nonprofits and some for donors. And, other nonprofits or other for-profit companies who are doing crypto donations, they're not launching this version 2, or like they're launching something else, right? We say that like donors are really our customers and our clients, right? Like we work with nonprofits and we partner with nonprofits, and we're there as a resource for nonprofits, but we're not charging you for our services, right? There's other like for-profit companies who are charging nonprofits. So they're looking at it as like, you're a customer or you're a client. Whereas for us, we just want to partner with nonprofits to get you all onboarded with us or whoever, right? And spread the word and get more crypto donations funneled through. So I will say, like, we've seen companies who are maybe like traditional payment companies who are now adding a crypto donation component, or they're traditional donor advised fund providers and they're now adding crypto. For us, like what sets us apart really is we accept any cryptocurrency, right? We're not like only Bitcoin or only Ethereum. And, we have a really low fee. So people are coming to us, but at the same time, other people have their advantage, and like someone yesterday was like, I'm only going to work with this company. And I'm like, that's totally fine. You're still making donations and you're charitably inclined. And then from the nonprofit perspective, we are seeing like there are some large institutions that are large nonprofits who are accepting crypto directly. And part of that is like, they have the resources, they have the budget, they have the staff to be able to do that. And that's great. Honestly, like it's great for them. They can do stuff with the crypto if they have someone who is on their team who knows what they're doing, essentially. Smaller nonprofits, we tend to work more with the small to mid-sized nonprofits because they don't have the budget or the staff person, and they don't want to learn about crypto, right? They want to learn how they can steward their crypto donors, but they don't want to learn about what a wallet means and what the like complexities are with having a wallet. And that's kind of like our bread and butter. And we're seeing that those nonprofits, like they want to accept cryptocurrency and they don't know how, right? Like I've talked to people who are like, we've been thinking about this for the past year. And it's like, that's great. I love that you're thinking about it, but like, they don't know where to go. And that's like one of the reasons why we try to do these webinars and like just get out in front of people, because we can talk through with you, like, maybe you should set up your own crypto wallet, and like that's totally fine, and like we're happy to be that resource. Or it might make sense for you to use a platform like Endaoment where you don't have to do anything, but you can still benefit from, you know, these donors and these donations. Someone just posted in the chat, any recommendations on crypto 101 lessons to learn more about this new style of giving? I'm happy to send like some resources if that would be helpful. There's a lot of articles out there, and I would say like anecdotally, what I always recommend is like, again, not to like be self-promoting, but like get set up with us or with somebody else where you can receive crypto donations and start marketing it to your donor base. Because we've seen like people put, you know, I mentioned we gave everyone a donate button, right? So like once you put that donate button up on your website, and once you put in a newsletter that like we're set up to receive crypto originated donations, we accept 1,000 tokens and this is the fee, and you give your donors information, people will come out of the woodworks and say like, oh, I never thought about giving my crypto, or like, oh, I have some Ethereum that I can donate, as an example. So we really find that once nonprofits start spreading the word, like it's not a guarantee that you have donors in your community who have crypto, but you know, you're signed up with a platform. So like for us, as an example, we're really active in Discord, which is like Slack for the gaming crypto community, if you will. So we have, and I have a slide. I just saw the question about how do we get started. I have a slide after with like my contact info and our Twitter and Discord and everything, but we're really active in Discord. So like once an organization gets onboarded with us, we're posting it in our Discord, we're posting it on Twitter. So like our donors are also seeing that nonprofits are set up with us now, and they might ask us like, oh, what's this nonprofit, or what's Community Foundation of New Haven? Or like, you know, they might see, oh, I'm actually like a donor of this organization and I can donate crypto to them. So my biggest piece of advice is like, just get signed up and start spreading the word. And then like happy to talk through strategy, right? Like Giving Tuesdays coming up as an example. So like incorporate some sort of crypto donation aspect to your Giving Tuesday strategy, or end of year. Like, as you saw, our activity is happening from October to December. I'm sure it's the same for some of you. So just making sure you're talking about it. Like with stock donations, it's the same way, where like you just have to keep telling people that you accept stock or you accept Venmo, right? Like it's just changing the behavior. And like the more you can be in front of your donors saying we accept crypto, the better it's going to be, because the more they're going to see it, then when they're ready to make their donation, they're going to see that and be like, oh yeah, right, I can donate crypto to you all. So that's kind of my biggest piece of advice. But there are articles out there. There's a podcast that our CEO did that when I was interviewing at Endaoment, I found it to be incredibly helpful. It's a continuation of what we just did, right? Like talking about some of the terms and debunking myths. It's by Joan Gary. I can pull it up now if I can multitask. I'm going to try to do this right now. And it was really, here it is, Cryptocurrency and the Future of Donor Advised Funds. It's kind of old, but I found it to be incredibly helpful. just as I was learning about crypto and talking about like donor engagement and all of that fun stuff. Are there any, I want to share my last slide. I also want to be mindful of time, but the slide has like contact information and how to get started. Are there any other questions before I share that information with you all? Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'm trying to think of any downsides. Are there any reasons we would not accept crypto? Good question. I don't think so, to be honest. Like I look at it as any other sort of donation payment, right? And the more you can offer your donors, I don't think it's overwhelming. I think it's informative, right? And it also puts you in a position where you're innovative and forward thinking. And again, you're not accepting the crypto directly. So the way it comes through our platform, at least, is like any other grant that you would receive from a community foundation or Schwab or Fidelity, right? It's delivered as dollars. And from your own like record keeping perspective, no one would ever know that you're accepting a crypto originated donation. And I don't personally see any downsides. Like if you were holding your own crypto, I would say like, yes, let's have a conversation. Let's make sure you understand like, you know, how to hold the crypto and what to do and all of that. But you're not doing that. You're accepting any other type of donation, like a stock donation or even like a credit card transfer. It's coming through as the same, where you're just getting like a grant from a community foundation, essentially. So I don't think that there are any downsides. And like we haven't really seen pushback from donors, like once nonprofits start spreading the word. We haven't seen anyone really say like, why are you accepting crypto donations? And, you know, like I had sent another organization a little blurb about the environmental impacts, like happy to share that with anyone. If you want something like in your back pocket, if a donor says something like, we're built on Ethereum, we've just reduced the environmental impact by 99%. So, you know, like there are kind of little blurbs and narratives that you can share if there ever is someone who's kind of questioning, but we haven't really seen that. Want to be mindful because I know it's 10. So I'm going to just share my screen quickly so you can see my last slide with my contact information. And yeah, this is how you can get started with us specifically. So like I said, our website's down. It may be back up in the time that I've been doing this, but I'm not entirely sure. But you go to act.endaoment.org/orgs, and you can just type your EIN number there, or you can search by your name. And there is a button that says, is this my organization? You click on that, you put in your contact information and your bank info. So we send our grants via an ABA bank wire. So there's prompts and you can get set up. I'm happy to like talk you through the process. You can try it. If you struggle, reach out to me. There's my email address, alexis@endaoment.org. And as I mentioned, very active on Discord. If anyone has Discord and wants to join us, please do. If you're curious about Discord, make an account, join us, but also really active on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So highly recommend you follow us. We're going to be posting a lot about our version 2 that's launching today, as well as a lot about just giving season and giving as well. So thank you all. Hope to hear from some of you, and I hope this was informative. And again, if anyone has any questions that I didn't answer or you didn't want to post in the chat, please feel free to reach out on email.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.